Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Federal tax revenue hits an all-time high, yet our irresponsible leaders still have us looking at a $600 billion deficit. Speaking of taxes, the USA ranks nearly last at number 32 in the Global Business Index, and our corporate tax burden is the worst in the industrialized world at 39.1%. We've reached another record. 46 million Americans are on food stamps. Maury, even though we're bringing in record tax revenue, we continue to run these billions of dollars of deficits, and it doesn't seem to be any stop in sight. We were talking a little bit off the air about some of that revenue that's being brought in, and what's it going to take to get our financial fiscal house in order here?
No, under the present administration and a Senate that's controlled by the Democrats, it's just going to keep going on until the next election, and whatever happens there will take a new direction possibly. But until that happens, it's just going to keep going. The only thing that has brought the taxes down from $1 trillion plus, in 2009, fiscal year ends on September 30th. End of 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, we had deficits that were well in excess of $1 trillion. When
and then when they cut it to $600 billion, they say, "Look at the savings that we've accrued."
Well, here's what's happened. First of all, the record deficit we ever had was the last year of George W. Bush.
9.5 trillion, 10 trillion. Oh, you mean the deficit, not the debt.
I'm talking about the deficit.
Yeah.
Yes, you were close as far as when he left the office, we had a $10 trillion debt. We now have an $18 trillion debt, which is an 80% increase in the 5.5 or 6 years that Obama has been in office. That's already there. And consequently, the only thing that they did to try to get that off the table so it wouldn't shut down the government and get downgraded by the credit rating companies like Moody's or Standard & Poor's was to cut down the military. I wonder how many of our viewers know that our Navy now is at the smallest ebb that it's been since 1912, but even before the First War, that our troops under arms are there back where we were before the beginning of the Second War, where we had only about 130 million people. We now have 320 million people, and we still have a smaller military force now than we had actually in the first year of the war in 1941.
And at the same time, Russia's building up and expanding their military, China's expanding and building their military, and the Islamic State is expanding unbelievably fast. They've tripled the amount of jihadists that are now in their army, so to speak. Plus, they're making $3 million a day on Iraqi oil that should be ours.
Well, the point, at the same time as they are building up, we are building down. And we're in a position right now, if we wanted to have boots on the ground, we don't have the boots on the ground anymore to send over there. So Obama's saying, well, I promised our people we'll never again get involved in any foreign escapades. He made sure that we wouldn't because he cut our military down. And the reason that this fiscal year, which ends on October the 1st, is going to show about a $500 billion deficit, a reduction from the $1 trillion pluses of the past. The reason for that is it's been cut out of the military. Now, one of the interesting things is, and this is a clever mechanism, they're saying, well, and probably true, that the future wars are not going to be like the Second War or even the post-World War II wars of Vietnam and Korea and wars of that nature, where you still had, or the invasion of Iraq, where you had armor, you had planes and tanks. Those are over. Now you're going to have the kind of murderous scum wars that are being waged in the Middle East. So we have to restructure ourselves. But his attitude is, we'll just go back to Fortress America and we'll stand there and wait to be attacked. And if they attack us, we'll try to do the best to defend ourselves. I don't know if our public really understands it. We have now lost the center point of positive activity in the world. Why do you think we're not getting anybody to join us against ISIS? because they feel that America no longer is a leader. America has lost its world leadership.
And we're not trustworthy.
But
you can't defend or depend on America
They
anymore.
also understand that we do not have the intelligence services anymore. We do not have the troops on the ground anymore. And if those that we still have, we're pulling them back. We have cut projects, long-term projects, new type of planes and so on. That's why we suddenly are cutting back on our deficit, because we have canceled out a lot of these projects. I know that from my personal context and experience, that Boeing, Halliburton, all these countries that had these defense contracts have been put on mothball. You know, they're holding those, and he isn't cutting back on any of his escapades with EPA and all the various agencies he has out there, where they have their own little military to enforce their will. So the point is, we are no longer the world leaders at this point. Why do you think Putin took over Crimea? He annexed it, just like Hitler annexed Czechoslovakia. No difference. Nobody says anything about that anymore.
Well, when people did bring that up, they were chastised and they
Well,
were
absolutely,
mocked, and
that's
they were
right.
impugned for it.
But the point is now, Putin would never have done that if there was somebody that was pushing back from this country. You're either nature abhors a vacuum, and world balance abhors a vacuum. The United States is now considered second rate as far as a military power is concerned.
Now, we just had Burger King move their corporate headquarters to Canada, of all places, to save on taxes. We are ranked 32 globally in the business index, and our tax burden is the worst in the industrialized world at almost 40%. Why wouldn't companies leave the country?
Well, it's like saying, why are companies leaving California to go to Texas?
Or Tennessee.
But Texas it's a second biggest state in the union, and they are really working hard. Even New York is doing a much more positive job. California is low on the totem pole, even here in the United States, as far as making it pleasant for businesses to develop. And you say, well, why don't we do something? Because that doesn't fit into the ideology of the people that are running this country. He wants to give everybody a raise. He says, let's bring the federal minimum wage up from $7.25 to $10.10, like that. Well, where do you think most of those people that make less than $10.10 work? They work in
fast food, retail.
You got it.
Hotels. A good friend of mine that owns a huge hotel in the mountains up north. We just raised the minimum wage $1 in this state. He says he has 500 employees. So what does that mean? It means your room's going up. It means that your burger's going up. It means that your coffee's going. Everything is going up, and you're paying for it.
Also, the basic services are coming down. I mean, he's going to try to do it with less people. Look, Obamacare. How do you think independent businesses are fighting it? They're fighting it by getting people off the dole as far as insurance is concerned. Go get your own policy.
The only good thing about the caliphate is that they're exempt from Obamacare. So if we do get taken over by radical Islam, maybe they'll get us out of Obamacare once and for all.
Well, I think a lot of other people would be gotten rid of at the same time.
There was
I know it was a joke.
A little bit of a joke. What's not a joke is we've set another record. 46 million people are now on food stamps. Where can the country go if half the country's not working and a fourth of the country, a fifth of the country is on food stamps?
It's all part of the master plan, lowest common denominator. The idea of, why do you think we have in the United States the largest number of independent businesses? There's no country in the world that comes even close to what we have. We have hundreds of thousands. They might be little businesses with 10 people, or they might be $1 billion company. But these are the independent instinct of the creative American is not matched anywhere in the world. And that is what made this country great, technologically, business-wise. in progress that's been made
And it's not being encouraged.
it,
When's the
what do
last
you
time
mean
you saw
encouragement?
any one of these
Discouraged.
leaders talk about liberty, property value, private property, freedom? You never hear those words. All you hear them do is attack.
Yeah, but you see, they're very, very clever now. They see that with this millennial generation that's coming up now, they're not interested. They're interested in having a good time. And I hate to make that judgment about a whole group of people, but to me, it's sad to see that the young generation today really doesn't look back at the old American values. I think those have changed so dramatically in the last 50 years that
And there's been an attack on the family. There's been an attack on marriage. There's been an attack on basically what you just said. Everything that was morally right about America.
we are the objects of nihilism, which means the destruction of any value standards whatsoever. Even the churches aren't doing anything about it.
Yep.
They're going along with it. It's kind of pathetic.
I mean, look at our Pope. You'd never imagine that going back 30 years, that everything in institutions would be where it is today.
Well, when you had John Paul II, you had a great man.
And you had Thatcher.
Yeah,
you had Reagan.
That's right. That's exactly right. We were living in a different world, and unfortunately, we were sucker punched by that. We thought the good days were coming back. Well, it was only an interlude for worse.
We need to take a quick break. Our Global Outlook, Political Insider, and History segments are straight ahead. If you'd like to email us with comments or catch a segment that you missed, just go to our website, theworldreport.org. Remember to like us or recommend us. We're being watched all over the world, so help spread the word. Our quote of the day: you can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality.